something we haven't talked about, the outside and the inside of that plane. When you're going to go out, especially in this environment, you go out and find an aircraft, that paint and interior may be outstanding and stunning. It may be on the other end of the spectrum on that one. How you are advising your customers on the value of that or what it may take to change that. But also, there are dozens of shops that'll do paint and interior work all across the United States. There are considerably fewer of those amount that do really good work. Right. So your favorite shops, but why? You know, what makes a really great shop in that world, speckled throughout the United States, you know, wherever they live, whatever the case. How are you advising your customers on that and kind of what goes through your head? So what's your involvement going forward after the sale, and then talk about the refurb process?
So from a going forward after the sale part of it, we have a saying around here, clients for life. It's a little bit trite, but it's very true. So when someone hires us to buy them an airplane, I view them as a client for life. I want them to call me if they have a problem. I want them to call me if they need a recommendation for paint and interior or maintenance, or you know, I've done it all. Paint and interior is probably the area where the most disappointment occurs in aviation. And unfortunately, some of it can be permanent. Or at least until the next time that you do paint and interior. You expect a paint and interior to last 10, maybe 15 years. And so a poorly done job, unless you're going to spend the money to redo it, is probably going to be something you have to live with for a long period of time, or in most cases, as long as you own the aircraft. So I like buying airplanes that need paint and interior because we can usually negotiate a better deal, and then my client can get exactly what they want. And I tell people, you know, paint and interior is a life thing. So you may buy an airplane that needs paint and interior, but if you spruce it up, you could get another couple of years out of it. Unless you're going to keep the airplane 10 or 15 years, don't do that. If you're going to keep it 15 years, by all means, nurse it a couple of years and then do paint and interior, and you can enjoy it for the next 10 years. If you're going to sell this airplane in 3 to 5 years, like most people do paint and interior when you buy it, because when you sell it in 3 or 4 years, it will still be fresh, it will still look good, and you enjoyed it and had a nice airplane the entire time.
That's a good point about the turn time. It's kind of like, you know, I'm just going to live in my house for a certain amount of time. That number never turns true. But if planes are flipping on a certain repeatable schedule, or predictable, I should say. I know you've done some paint and interior that are great looking, not that you personally have done them, but I mean, you've gone through the process with customers that look like all of them end up looking like the high-end corporate jets. They look great. A couple of them have been incredible looking aircraft, but it's like, here's this one and here's the rest of the fleet. How does that affect? They're very unique in an extremely cool way, but now if that plane happens to be on that list of, I'm going to sell it in 3 years, how do you advise a customer in that world? You know, because all of a sudden you've done something this is unbelievable. How sellable is that?
We try to avoid things that are weird. There are certain colors that you avoid.
And yet we're still in the same room here.
Yeah, exactly. So greens and yellows are colors that you should avoid. Green airplanes, green stripes, yellow stripes, they just don't sell well. It's not something that, you know, the other colors, paint and interior, gray's back in and it was gone for a long time. You know, we went from earth tones, now we're back to gray. So some of it,
beige is always in.
Yeah, beige is kind of standard. So there's always a consideration of what's in vogue and what's not, and that's up to the eye of the beholder. So, but what you want to avoid is anything that's crazy and weird. And believe it or not, that's actually driven very often by the airframe. Okay. For instance, a Pilatus can have a pretty weird paint job on it and looks cool, because Pilatus has been putting weird paint jobs on them since day
Things
one.
That spiral around or all sorts of things.
Unique is a better term.
Unique, unique. So
for the viewing public,
So you have some latitude there that you might not have on a King Air. King Air schemes are understood to be pretty standard, and you know, and you kind of loosely stick with the with the recent beach schemes. Yep. But we try not to depart too far from what's normal. Another example is Learjets. Learjets also, you'll see some, especially on the 45 and 75, you'll see some unique paint. You know, that airplane kind of lends itself to more of a race car type mentality.
Like a sports car, yeah.
More of a sports car mentality. So you'll see some of that reflected in those choices of paint and interior. Black interior is a lot more common on a Learjet than it is a King Air. We bought a Lear 45 XR for a company last year, and they painted it black. It's flat black, like this room that we're sitting in.
Flat black,
Flat
not
black.
glossy.
Yeah, it's not glossy. It is flat black, and it is so cool looking that there's a picture of it being painted in my office. But that's very unique. If you did that to a Citation,
Okay.
I probably wouldn't be so hot about it.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. And it kind of dates the aircraft.
It does.
There's certain things you can do, especially with interiors, that makes it feel like it's a 90s or 2000. So
You're exactly
you have
right.
to be very careful. And then you do have the guys that don't care. I mean, I had a guy last year who knew exactly what he wanted. It was totally off the norm, the spectrum of the norm, but he knew what he wanted. And he was very particular about it, and we gave him exactly what he wanted, and he loved it, and it looks fantastic. But it's not your typical aircraft.
So here's a great example along those lines. We had a gentleman that we bought a Pilatus for, doing paint and interior, and so he wanted a King Ranch interior. Very popular in the King Air series, very popular in the King Air 350. Not ideal in the Pilatus, and really not an ideal interior in my opinion at all. If you really go King Ranch with the hard seats that scratch easy within a short amount of time, by design it looks like it's old.
Well used, yeah.
And the leather's hard, it's not comfortable, it's slippery, which is uncomfortable in an airplane if you feel like you're slipping out of the seats the whole time. So between me and the interior shop, we were able to guide him into something that had the same look,
Yeah.
but had more durable materials.
More utilitarian.
Yeah. And then we threw in some alligator skin on the sidewalls
Yeah.
for that.
You showed me
You know who I'm talking about.
You showed me photos of that, and it turned out
It was beautiful.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It really did. It was good.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy about paint and interior, is because you can get creative with it. You can kind of let the customer inject some of their personality into it. I've gotten to the point now where I'll tell a customer, send me some photos of the favorite room in your home, your office.
Exactly.
Some of these guys have second or third homes. It gives me an opportunity to send this to our design center, and they have a chance to see the aesthetic of that customer and what they want, and it makes a big difference in getting us kind of on the same page with them immediately, versus having to sort through and try to figure out, okay, this guy likes this, but he doesn't like. If I see photos, and especially if it's a husband and wife, if the wife's involved, it goes a lot smoother, a lot quicker.
Absolutely.